I was standing on the auditorium steps in my cap and gown, diploma still warm in my hands, when Linda decided to remind me exactly where I stood in her world. "Well, isn't that just adorable?" she said, loud enough that the families milling around us could hear. Her smile was perfectly practiced, the kind that looked warm in photographs but never quite reached her eyes. "A little engineering degree. How cute." She patted my shoulder like I was 7 years old, showing her a crayon drawing. My father stood beside her, already reaching for his phone to check something that was apparently more important than this moment. For years of late nights, of problem sets that made my eyes burn, of lab reports and thermodynamics and differential equations, reduced to cute, like I'd just completed a pottery class. I felt my jaw tighten, felt the familiar heat rising up my neck. But I'd learned by then to keep my face neutral, to let nothing show. That's what 3 years of living with Linda had taught me. Control your reactions, document everything, and wait. What Linda didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that the woman standing directly behind her, the one in the slate-gray suit who'd been watching this entire exchange with increasingly narrowed eyes, was Rebecca Chen, senior technical recruiter for Stellar Dynamics, one of the most prestigious aerospace engineering firms on the West Coast. I'd noticed Rebecca earlier, standing near the College of Engineering banner with a lanyard that marked her as industry liaison. She'd been observing the graduates, probably scouting talent like recruiters did at these events. But now she wasn't looking at the crowd of fresh engineers. She was looking at Linda with an expression I recognized, the same look I'd perfected over the years. The look that said she was filing this moment away for later consideration. Rebecca caught my eye over Linda's shoulder. One eyebrow lifted slightly. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled, pulled a business card from her portfolio, and began walking toward us. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why that moment mattered, why Rebecca's intervention would change everything, you need to understand how I'd gotten here. You need to understand Linda. My mother died when I was 15. Pancreatic cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. My father, Marcus Chen, handled it the way he handled everything, by throwing himself into work and pretending emotions were something other people dealt with. He was a corporate attorney, the kind who billed hours like they were Olympic events. Grief made him uncomfortable, so he simply wasn't around to feel it. I learned to be self-sufficient. I cooked my own meals, did my own laundry, got myself to school and back. My grades were excellent because homework was easier than sitting in that empty house thinking about Mom's laugh or the way she used to quiz me on vocabulary words while we gardened. Dad and I had an understanding. He paid for things. I didn't require emotional labor. It worked, in the way that broken things sometimes keep functioning. Then, 2 years later, Linda arrived. He met her at some bar association event. She was a paralegal at a competing firm, 15 years younger than him, with the kind of polished beauty that came from expensive salons and a rigorous workout schedule. She laughed at his jokes, complimented his success, and within 6 months she'd moved into our house with her daughter, Brittany. I was 17, starting my senior year of high school. Brittany was 19, supposedly taking a gap year to find herself, which seemed to primarily involve shopping and posting Instagram photos. Linda didn't try to be my mother. That would have required genuine effort. Instead, she positioned herself as the woman who'd rescued my poor, lonely father, and I was expected to be grateful for this gift she'd bestowed upon our broken home. The undermining started small. "You're wearing that to the dinner party?" she'd ask, voice dripping with concern that sounded almost maternal if you didn't listen closely. "I mean, it's fine, I suppose. Not everyone has a natural sense of style." Or, "Marcus, did you know Anya's planning to apply to engineering schools?" Engineering. Isn't that ambitious? The way she said ambitious made it sound like delusional. My father, when present, would make vague noises about me doing whatever I wanted. Then he'd return to his laptop, effectively removing himself from the conversation. Linda's subtle digs didn't rate high enough on his attention scale to warrant actual parenting. I got into MIT. Full scholarship, covering tuition and room and board. When the acceptance letter came, I showed it to my father in his study. He glanced up from his brief, nodded. "Good job. That's That's good. It's MIT, Dad. It's one of the best engineering programs in the world. Very impressive. He was already looking back at his screen. Linda appeared in the doorway, martini in hand. MIT. Well, that's certainly something. Though I do hope you've considered schools closer to home. It seems awfully far for a girl on her own. And so expensive. I have a full scholarship. Oh. She took a sip, her smile tightening. Well, I suppose they have quotas to fill. The words hung there. My father didn't look up. That's when I started keeping records. I bought a small notebook, the kind that fit in my back pocket. Every comment, every subtle dig, I wrote it down. Date, time, exact words when I could remember them. It seemed paranoid at the time, but something in my gut told me I'd need evidence eventually. That Linda wasn't just casually thoughtless, she was systematically diminishing me. At MIT, I threw myself into my studies the way my father threw himself into work. Turned out we were more alike than either of us wanted to admit. I specialized in aerospace propulsion systems, spent my summers doing research internships, built a network of professors who actually saw my potential. I came home for holidays because it was expected, but those visits became increasingly uncomfortable. Linda had fully colonized the house. My mother's garden was now a meditation space, with Zen stones and bamboo. The kitchen where Mom had taught me to cook was renovated into something that looked like a showroom, all marble and stainless steel, never used because Linda didn't cook. My old bedroom was still theoretically mine, but it had been redecorated into a guest room with beige everything and inspirational quotes on the walls. My childhood books, my debate trophies, my photos, all boxed up in the garage for safekeeping. Brittany, meanwhile, had dropped out of community college and was working as a receptionist at a dental office, though working was generous. She called in sick frequently and spent most of her time planning her wedding to Chase, a personal trainer she'd been dating for 6 months. Linda talked about Brittany's wedding the way generals discussed military campaigns. Every holiday visit included updates on venues and flowers and dress fittings. My father wrote checks without question. When I mentioned needing a new laptop for my senior design project, Dad hesitated. That's a significant expense, Sonia. Are you sure your current laptop won't work? It was 4 years old and barely running. But I didn't argue. I picked up extra tutoring gigs and bought it myself. The Christmas of my junior year, Linda announced that Chase and Brittany were getting married that June, the same weekend as my MIT graduation. I'm sure you understand, Linda said, passing me a plate of cookies she'd ordered from an expensive bakery. Brittany's been planning this for months. The venue was impossible to book. We're so lucky we got this date. My graduation is that weekend. Well, yes, but graduations happen every year, don't they? And it's not like you need us there. You're so independent. She said independent like it was a character flaw. My father was in his study. I went to talk to him. Dad, my graduation is the same day as Brittany's wedding. He rubbed his face tiredly. I know. Linda mentioned it. And what do you want me to say, Anya? The wedding venue was already booked. These things cost money. Deposits were put down. I'm graduating from MIT. I'm aware. And I'm very proud. But you're an adult now. You don't need your father standing in the audience clapping. Brittany's wedding is important to Linda, and Linda is important to me. The words landed like a slap. Not because they were cruel. My father wasn't cruel. He was simply absent, even when he was in the room. To him, this was a scheduling conflict, nothing more. He'd already decided which event mattered. I went back to MIT early that year, skipping New Year's entirely. Told them I had research obligations. Dad accepted this without question. I don't think he noticed I'd left. But I noticed something else. When I applied for summer internships that spring, none of my applications seemed to go through. I'd submit everything properly, get automated confirmations, then nothing. Not even rejections, which was strange. These were companies that had recruited heavily at MIT, companies where I knew people. I mentioned it to my roommate Jade, who was also in aerospace. That's weird, she said. I applied to 3 of the same companies and heard back within a week. Her GPA was lower than mine. Her project portfolio was solid but not exceptional. By all metrics, I should have been hearing back. I started testing it. I'd apply to a position, then have Jade apply to the same one a day later using similar materials. She'd hear back. I wouldn't. Something was interfering with my applications. But what? I got my answer 3 weeks before graduation. I'd come home for a weekend to pick up some documents I needed for a security clearance application. Dad was at the office, naturally. Linda was supposed to be at a spa day with Brittany. I let myself in with my key, headed upstairs to the home office where I'd stored some old files. That's when I heard Linda's voice coming from the guest room, my former bedroom. She was on the phone, laptop open on the desk. No, this is her stepmother calling, Linda was saying, her voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before, syrupy concerned. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I wanted to reach out directly before you consider Anya Chen's application. My blood went cold. I stood in the hallway, phone out, recording app already open. You see, we're very worried about her, Linda continued. She's been struggling with some mental health issues. Nothing dangerous, you understand, but she has a tendency to exaggerate her qualifications. Her professors have been very kind, very accommodating, but between you and me, we're concerned she's not quite ready for the pressures of a professional environment. I recorded 3 minutes of Linda systematically destroying my reputation. She hit every note perfectly, concerned stepmother, troubled young woman, wouldn't want you to waste your time. She even threw in a bit about medication and episodes that required hospitalization. All lies. Complete, fabricated lies. She'd done this before. I could tell from how smoothly the script flowed. This wasn't improvised, this was practiced. She'd been making these calls for months, intercepting my internship opportunities, ensuring I stayed dependent on Dad's financial support a little longer. Why? What did she gain from sabotaging me? The answer clicked into place with sickening clarity. As long as I struggled, as long as I needed help, I wasn't a threat. I was just Marcus's troubled daughter, the one who'd never quite recovered from losing her mother. The one who needed Linda's steadying influence. But if I succeeded, if I graduated and got a prestigious job and built my own life, I became something else. I became evidence that Linda had never been necessary. That Dad and I would have been fine without her. I couldn't threaten her fairy tale. I backed away silently, left the house, drove to a coffee shop 3 miles away. Sat there shaking for 20 minutes before I could think clearly. Then I made a call. Professor Morrison had been my advisor for 2 years. She'd written one of my recommendation letters, had been pleased with my senior thesis. When I explained what I'd discovered, she went quiet for a long moment. Send me the recording, she said finally. And every company Linda called. I have contacts at most major aerospace firms. We're going to fix this. Will they even believe me? Anya, your work speaks for itself. Once HR departments know what happened, know there was interference, they'll review your applications properly. Some of them will be furious. They take recruiting integrity seriously. This isn't just about you. It's about someone corrupting their hiring process. That night, Professor Morrison made calls. So did 2 other faculty members she looped in. By the end of the week, I had 3 interview requests from companies that had supposedly passed on me months ago, including Stellar Dynamics. Rebecca Chen was the one who reached out personally. We received some concerning information about interference in your application process, her email read. I'd like to discuss this directly and review your qualifications properly. Would you be available for a call? On that call, Rebecca was blunt. What your stepmother did was defamation, possibly tortious interference. Some of my colleagues want to pursue legal action against her. That's up to you. What I can tell you is that I've reviewed your actual file, your real qualifications, and I'd like to fly you out for a full interview loop. We have a propulsion engineering position that would be perfect for you. My graduation is in 3 weeks. I know. We'll fly you out next week. If things go well, I'll have an offer letter ready before you walk across that stage. The interview was the easiest thing I'd ever done. Not because the technical questions were simple. They were brutal, actually, but because I was finally in a room where people were evaluating me based on what I could actually do. No filters, no sabotage, no one whispering poison in the interviewer's ear. They offered me the job 2 days later. $127,000 starting salary, full benefits, relocation assistance to the Seattle area, and a signing bonus of $15,000. I accepted immediately. But I didn't tell anyone. Not Dad, not Linda, not even Jade. I had a better plan. The week before graduation, I came home one final time. Linda was in full wedding coordinator mode, shouting into her phone about boutonnieres. Brittany was having a meltdown about the bridesmaids' dresses. Dad was hiding in his study. I knocked on his door. "Dad, can we talk?" He glanced up, looking older than I remembered. More gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to let you know that I'm not angry you're choosing the wedding over my graduation. I understand family is important." He blinked, surprised. He'd probably expected an argument. "Oh, well, thank you for understanding. I do have one request, though. I'd like to have one last family dinner before I graduate. Just the four of us. This Friday." "Friday?" He checked his calendar. "I suppose we could do that. Linda's been busy with the wedding, but I'll cook," I said. "Mom's lasagna recipe." I found her old cookbook. Something flickered across his face. "Pain, maybe, or memory. That would be nice, Anya." Linda wasn't thrilled about being pulled away from wedding preparations, but Dad insisted. That was something, at least. He could still be moved when I invoked my mother's memory. Friday evening, I cooked in that sterile showroom kitchen that used to smell like Mom's baking. I made the lasagna exactly the way she'd taught me, with the secret ingredient, a tablespoon of honey in the tomato sauce, that made all the difference. Linda arrived late, annoyed. Brittany kept checking her phone. Dad looked uncomfortable, like he sensed something was coming, but couldn't quite name it. We sat down at the dining room table. I served the food. "This is lovely," Dad said, taking a bite. His eyes closed briefly. "God, this tastes exactly like Mom made it," I finished. "I know." Linda made a small noise of irritation. She didn't like being reminded that Dad had a whole life before her. "So," I said, keeping my voice light, conversational, "I wanted to tell you all something." Brittany looked up from her phone. "Are you finally dating someone?" Linda laughed. "Brittany, be nice. Anya's very busy with her studies. Romance can wait." "Actually," I said, pulling an envelope from my bag, "I wanted to share some news about what's happening after graduation." I slid the envelope across to my father. He opened it, frowning slightly. Inside was my offer letter from Stellar Dynamics. Official letterhead, signed by the VP of Engineering, complete with salary details and start date. Dad's eyebrows shot up. "Anya, this is an incredible offer." "What is it?" Linda asked, trying to look over his shoulder. "She got a job," Dad said slowly, still reading. "A very good job. Stellar Dynamics is one of the top aerospace firms in the country." "Oh," Linda said. Her smile was strained. "Well, that's wonderful. I'm sure they were charmed by your enthusiasm." "Actually," I said, reaching for my phone, "they almost didn't see my application at all. Someone had been calling the companies I applied to, telling them I was mentally unstable and not fit for employment." The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Linda's smile froze. That's terrible. Who would do such a thing?" "You would," I said calmly. "You did." I pressed play on the recording. Linda's voice filled the dining room, syrupy and concerned. She's been struggling with some mental health issues, tendency to exaggerate her qualifications, episodes that required hospitalization. Brittany's mouth fell open. Dad went absolutely still, fork halfway to his mouth. The recording played for 30 seconds before I stopped it. "I have 3 minutes of this conversation, plus 12 emails you sent to various HR departments using a fake account, plus documentation of 19 separate companies where you interfered with my applications." "I was trying to protect you," Linda said quickly. Her voice was shaking now, the mask starting to crack. "These big companies, they take advantage of young women, You were trying to sabotage me," I said. My voice stayed level, which took more effort than anything I'd done in the last 4 years. "You've been systematically undermining me since you moved into this house. The comments about my clothes, my major, my ambitions. The way you made sure I knew I was less important than Brittany. The way you convinced Dad to choose her wedding over my graduation. Dad finally spoke. Anya, I didn't. I know you didn't understand what she was doing, I interrupted. You were too busy working to notice. But I noticed. I documented everything. I pulled out my notebook, the one I'd been keeping for 3 years. Set it on the table. Every comment. Every time she made me feel small. Every time she suggested I wasn't good enough, or smart enough, or pretty enough. It's all in here. Linda's face had gone from pink to white to a blotchy red. You're twisting everything. I've been nothing but kind to you. You called my MIT acceptance a quota fill, I said. You told Dad I didn't need him at my graduation because I'm so independent, like that was an insult. You sabotaged my job applications and lied to professional recruiters about my mental health. That's defamation, Dad said quietly. He was looking at Linda with an expression I'd never seen before, like he was seeing her for the first time and didn't like what he found. That's potentially actionable. She could sue you. The companies could sue you. Linda stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. I've done everything for this family. You've done everything for yourself, I corrected. You wanted my father's money and his house and his status. I was just an inconvenience. Something to be managed. Brittany was crying now, mascara running down her face. Mom, you didn't really do that, did you? Linda rounded on her daughter. Don't you turn on me too. I did this for us. So we'd have security, so we'd have a future. You did it because you're a con artist, I said. The words felt powerful, like finally naming something that had been lurking in shadows. A very good one. You saw a widower with money and a daughter he didn't know how to connect with, and you moved in. You love-bombed Dad until he married you. Then you started erasing me from the picture so you and Brittany could be his only family. Dad's hands were shaking. He set down his fork carefully, like it might break. Is this true? He asked Linda. Any of it? Linda's face crumpled. But I'd seen her cry before, strategic tears deployed when she needed sympathy. This was her nuclear option. Marcus, please, you have to understand. Did you make those calls? His voice was steel now, the courtroom voice I rarely heard. Silence. Linda. Did you sabotage our daughter's job applications? She's not our daughter, Linda snapped. The words came out before she could stop them. She's yours. From before. And she's been poisoning you against me since the beginning. I've barely been here, I said quietly. I've been at MIT. Building the life you tried to prevent me from having. Dad stood up. His face was carved from granite. Get out. Linda's tears stopped like someone had flipped a switch. What? Get out of my house. Tonight. Take Brittany. I want you gone within the hour. You can't be serious. Marcus, we're married. And we'll be calling my lawyer in the morning to discuss divorce proceedings. You committed defamation against my daughter. You interfered with her career opportunities. You lied to me, to her, to everyone. His voice was getting louder, something I'd never heard from my eternally composed father. You manipulated me, and I let you, because I was too grief-stricken and too cowardly to face my own daughter and be a real parent. He turned to me, and I saw something break in his expression. Anya, I am so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have seen what was happening. I should have been here. My throat was too tight to speak. I just nodded. Linda was still sputtering, trying different angles, begging, threatening, crying. Brittany had retreated to a corner, looking shell-shocked. Dad pulled out his phone, dialed. Jim? Marcus Chen. I need you to come to my house immediately. Security matter. He paused. No, call the police if she doesn't leave voluntarily. Jim was Dad's firm's head of security, a former cop who handled sensitive matters for clients. That got through to Linda. She grabbed her purse, her face twisted with rage. You'll regret this, she hissed at me. Both of you. You think you're so smart, you think you've won. I graduated from MIT with a 3.9 GPA, I said calmly. I'm starting a 6-figure job at one of the most prestigious aerospace companies in the world. I have friends who value me, mentors who believe in me, and a future I built myself despite your best efforts to destroy it. I've already won. Linda made a sound like a wounded animal and stormed toward the door. Brittany followed, still crying. Mom, wait. Don't, Linda snapped. Don't you dare take their side. The door slammed behind them. The house was very quiet. Dad and I sat at the dining room table, my mother's lasagna growing cold between us. He looked at the notebook, at the offer letter, at me. "Tell me everything," he said finally. "From the beginning. All of it." So I did. We talked until 3 in the morning. I showed him the recordings, the emails, the documentation of every incident I'd cataloged. He listened without interrupting, and I watched his expression shift from shock to anger to grief to something that might have been pride. "You did all this alone," he said when I finished. "You documented everything, got yourself into MIT, fought through her sabotage, and came out the other side stronger." "I had help," I said. "Professor Morrison, my friends, Rebecca at Stellar Dynamics. But I wasn't there. Your own father wasn't there when you needed him." I didn't have a good response to that. It was true. "I can't undo the last 3 years," he said. "But I'd like to try to be a father again. If you'll let me." "I'd like that," I said. And meant it. The next morning, Dad's lawyer started divorce proceedings. The prenup Linda had signed, the one she'd probably thought was just a formality, turned out to be ironclad. She'd get nothing except what she'd brought into the marriage. The house was Dad's, inherited from his parents. The accounts were separate. She'd been living well on his generosity, but she had no legal claim to his assets. Within a week, Linda and Brittany had moved into a small apartment across town. The wedding was postponed. Chase's family had gotten wind of the scandal and strongly encouraged him to reconsider. Dad asked if I wanted to press charges for defamation. I thought about it. "No," I decided finally. "But I want her to know I could. I want that hanging over her." Rebecca suggested we send a cease and desist letter, which Dad's lawyer drafted. It essentially warned Linda that any further interference with my career, any attempts to contact me, or any disparaging statements about me would result in immediate legal action. She signed it without argument. 3 weeks later, I walked across the stage at MIT's graduation ceremony. Dad was there. Front row center. He applauded louder than anyone when I received my diploma, and I saw tears on his face when I looked out into the audience. After the ceremony, as I stood on those auditorium steps with my diploma in hand, Rebecca Chen approached me. She was smiling. "Congratulations, Dr. Chen-to-be. Not a doctor yet. Just a bachelor's degree. Give it time. You'll get there." She glanced around. "Your stepmother isn't here, I see." "Ex-stepmother, as of last week." "And no." "Good." Rebecca handed me a folder. "Your onboarding packet. Start date is July 15th. I've also taken the liberty of connecting you with a relocation specialist who can help you find an apartment in Seattle." "Thank you," I said. "For everything. For believing me." "I didn't have to believe you," Rebecca said. "I watched her dismiss you to your face. That told me everything I needed to know about her character. And then I looked at your actual qualifications." She smiled. "Thank you for choosing Stellar. I have a feeling you're going to do remarkable things." That's when Linda's voice cut through the crowd. "Anya." I turned. She was walking toward me, Brittany trailing behind. For a moment, I wondered if security would need to get involved. But Dad materialized between us, his hand on my shoulder. "Linda," he said coldly. "You were instructed not to contact Anya." "I just wanted to congratulate her," Linda said. Her voice was all honey again, like the last 3 weeks hadn't happened. "That's all. Is that so wrong?" Rebecca stepped forward, her business card in hand. "I'm Rebecca Chen from Stellar Dynamics. You and I spoke on the phone once. You told me Anya was mentally unstable and had fabricated her qualifications." Linda's face went white. "I wanted to thank you for that conversation," Rebecca continued smoothly. "It prompted us to review our hiring processes and identify a serious case of defamation and interference. We've since flagged similar attempts with other candidates. You've actually helped us improve our systems." I didn't mean. The recordings suggest otherwise. Now, I believe you were asked to leave." Rebecca's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Congratulations on your graduation, Anya. I'll see you in July." She walked away, leaving Linda standing there with her mouth open. Dad guided me in the opposite direction. "Let's get lunch," he said. "Your mother had a favorite restaurant near campus." She took me there when I visited during her college days. I know it, I said. I've been there a few times. She'd be so proud of you, Dad said quietly. I know I haven't earned the right to say that. But she would be. My throat tightened. Thanks, Dad. We spent the afternoon talking, really talking, for the first time in years. He told me about Mom's college days, stories I'd never heard. I told him about my research, my plans, my fears about starting this new job. It felt like something was healing slowly. Like maybe we could build a real relationship, even if it was years overdue. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. Linda tried to drag it out, hoping Dad would change his mind. He didn't. Brittany's wedding was called off entirely. Chase decided he didn't want to tie himself to a family with that much drama. She moved back in with Linda. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Linda tried to get back into the paralegal world, but found that her reputation had preceded her. Dad hadn't spread rumors, he didn't need to. The legal community in our city was small, and word got around. Nobody wanted to hire someone who'd been caught lying and manipulating so flagrantly. She ended up working retail. Brittany got a job at a call center. I didn't feel triumphant about that. I didn't feel anything at all, really. They'd written themselves out of my story. I started at Stellar Dynamics in July. The work was challenging, exhilarating, everything I'd hoped for. I was on a team designing next-generation ion propulsion systems. My colleagues were brilliant and supportive. My manager, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, became an unexpected mentor. You have good instincts, she told me after my first major presentation. Don't second-guess yourself so much. I'm working on it, I said. Good. Because you're going to lead your own project within a year. I can already tell. She was right. 14 months into the job, I was promoted to lead engineer on a lunar lander propulsion system. My team consisted of 5 people, all older than me, all willing to follow my direction because the work spoke for itself. Dad came to visit me in Seattle that Christmas. We walked through Pike Place Market, watched the fish throwers, drank too much coffee. You seem happy, he observed. I am, I said. And realized it was true. I'm glad. He was quiet for a moment. I got a letter from Linda last week. My stomach tightened. And? She wanted to apologize. Said she'd been in therapy, realized she'd been wrong about everything, wanted a chance to make amends. What did you say? I threw it away. He looked at me. But if you want to respond, if you want closure. I have closure, I said firmly. I don't need her apology. She doesn't get to unburden herself at my expense. He nodded. Good. That's what I hoped you'd say. We didn't talk about Linda again that trip. Years passed. I moved up at Stellar, eventually becoming senior propulsion engineer. I published papers. I spoke at conferences. I mentored junior engineers the way Rebecca and Dr. Okonkwo had mentored me. I bought a house with a view of the Olympic Mountains. Got a dog, a rescue mutt named Pascal after the physicist. Started dating a software engineer named David who made me laugh and never once asked me to be smaller or quieter or less than I was. Dad retired from law and moved to Seattle to be closer to me. We had dinner every Sunday. Sometimes we talked about Mom, about the early days before cancer. Sometimes we just ate in comfortable silence. He never remarried. Once was enough, he said wryly. Besides, I'm learning to be alone without being lonely. Probably should have learned that 30 years ago. 5 years after graduation, I got an email from Brittany. It was short. I'm sorry for how my mom treated you. I see it now. I hope you're doing well. I read it 3 times, then deleted it without responding. Not out of cruelty, but because I didn't need that connection. She was part of a chapter I'd closed. But sometimes, late at night when I was working on a particularly complex problem, I'd think about that moment on the auditorium steps. Linda calling my degree cute. Rebecca standing behind her, witnessing everything. That was the moment the trajectory changed. Not because Rebecca saved me, I'd have found a way regardless. But because someone saw what Linda was doing and called it what it was. There's power in being witnessed. In having someone say, no, this isn't normal. This isn't okay. I kept that business card Rebecca gave me, framed on my office wall. A reminder that sometimes the universe puts the right person in the right place at the right moment. And sometimes that's all you need, one person who sees you clearly and decides to help. Now, when I mentor young engineers, especially women, I watch for the signs. The ones who apologize too much. The ones who minimize their achievements. The ones who've been told they're not quite good enough, not quite smart enough, not quite worth the investment. I see them because I was them. And I do for them what Rebecca did for me. I tell them the truth about their capabilities. I give them opportunities. I make sure they're evaluated on merit, not someone else's poisonous narrative. Last month, I gave a talk at MIT for graduating seniors. Stood on the same stage where I'd received my diploma 7 years ago. A young woman approached me afterward, nervous. My family didn't come to graduation, she said quietly. They said it wasn't important. That I should be focusing on getting married, not chasing some career dream. I recognized the look in her eyes. The one I'd seen in the mirror for 3 years. What's your field? I asked. Mechanical engineering. Robotics. And what do you want to do? I want to work on space exploration. Robotic systems for Mars colonies. I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy. It sounds exactly right. I pulled out one of my business cards. Send me your resume. Stellar is hiring for a robotics integration team. We're partnering with 3 Mars mission programs. Her eyes went wide. Really? Really? And if your family can't see your value, that's their loss. But I see it. So do the professors who recommended you, the companies that will interview you, and the colleagues who will work beside you. You get to choose your family. Sometimes that means blood relatives. Sometimes it means the people who show up when it matters. She clutched my card like it was a life preserver. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The work is brutal. But if you're as good as I think you are, you'll love every minute of it. After she walked away, I stood there for a moment, looking at the auditorium steps. The exact spot where Linda had tried to diminish me one last time. Where Rebecca had intervened. Where everything had changed. I pulled out my phone and texted Dad, just finished my MIT talk. Want to grab dinner when I'm back in Seattle? His response came immediately, absolutely. I'm proud of you, Anya. Every single day. I stared at those words for a long moment. He'd said variations of this dozens of times over the past 7 years, like he was trying to make up for all the times he hadn't said it when it mattered. And maybe that was okay. Maybe we didn't get perfect families or perfect timing or perfect justice. Maybe we just got people trying their best, failing, and if we were lucky, learning to do better. The young woman I'd just talked to reminded me that healing wasn't just about fixing your own wounds. It was about making sure the next person didn't have to bleed the same way. I thought about Linda sometimes, usually when I was too tired to keep the thoughts away. Wondered if she'd actually changed, if therapy had helped, if she understood what she'd done. Then I'd remember that it didn't matter. She'd tried to erase me from my own story. Tried to make me small enough to fit her narrative. And I'd refused. That was the only victory that mattered, not her punishment, but my freedom. The freedom to build a life where I didn't have to shrink myself to make other people comfortable. Where my achievements weren't cute, but recognized for what they actually were, the result of years of hard work, intelligence, and determination. Dr. Okonkwo announced her retirement last spring. At her going-away party, she pulled me aside. They're going to offer you my position, she said. Director of Advanced Propulsion Research. I'm 31. So? I was 33 when I made director. You're ready. She smiled. Besides, I've been grooming you for this for 5 years. Don't make me look bad by turning it down. I wouldn't dare. Good. Because there's a 15-year-old girl somewhere right now who needs to see that someone who looks like her, who's faced what she's facing, made it to the top. Be that person, Anya. I took the position. My first major decision as director was to overhaul our recruiting process. I implemented blind resume reviews, structured interviews, and, most importantly, a protocol for investigating any reports of third-party interference in candidate applications. We'd found 3 more cases similar to mine, family members sabotaging young women's careers out of jealousy, control, or misguided protection. Each time, we'd worked with the candidates to document everything and pursue legal action if they wanted it. I thought Linda would appreciate the irony. By trying to destroy my opportunities, she'd inadvertently created a system that protected other women from people exactly like her. David proposed on the anniversary of my MIT graduation. We were hiking in the Cascades, and he'd packed a ring in his backpack along with the sandwiches and trail mix. "I know your family situation is complicated," he said, down on one knee beside a waterfall. "But I want you to know my family is your family now. My parents already love you. My sister thinks you're the coolest person alive. And me? I'm just grateful every day that I get to be part of your life." I said yes through tears. We got married the following spring in a small ceremony overlooking Puget Sound. Dad walked me down the aisle. Rebecca came, along with Dr. Okonkwo, Professor Morrison, and half my team from Stellar. Jade, my old MIT roommate, was my maid of honor. During the reception, she pulled me aside. "Remember when we used to stay up until 3 a.m. working on problem sets, and you'd talk about how you felt invisible in your own house?" I remember. Look at you now. Director level at 31, married to a guy who worships the ground you walk on, surrounded by people who chose to be here because they love you. "You're not invisible anymore." "I never was," I said quietly. "I just needed to find people who could actually see me." The wedding was small, intimate, exactly what I wanted. No drama, no sabotage, no one trying to make it about themselves. Linda sent a card. I recognized the handwriting. Didn't open it. Just put it in the trash where it belonged. Brittany sent a gift, an expensive coffee maker with a note. "Congratulations. You deserve every happiness." I almost threw it away too. But David convinced me to keep it. "She's trying," he said. "Doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with her. But maybe she's learning too." Maybe. I used the coffee maker every morning and tried not to think about where it came from. 2 years into my director role, I got invited to speak at a conference on women in STEM. The keynote was supposed to focus on technical achievements, but the organizer asked if I'd be willing to discuss obstacles I'd overcome. I almost said no. The story was personal, painful. Did I really want to share it with hundreds of strangers? Then I thought about that young woman at MIT. The one whose family hadn't come to graduation. The one who'd needed someone to tell her she wasn't crazy for wanting more. I said yes. The day of the keynote, I stood backstage, notes trembling in my hands. David was in the front row, smiling encouragement. Dad sat beside him, looking nervous but proud. And in the third row, completely unexpected, Rebecca Chen. She caught my eye and nodded once. "You've got this." I walked onto that stage and told my story. Not the sanitized version, not the professional highlight reel. The real story. Linda's systematic sabotage. My father's absence. The recording, the confrontation, the moment on the graduation steps when Rebecca had witnessed everything and chosen to help. I talked about documentation, about building evidence, about the importance of being strategic even when you wanted to scream. I talked about the cost of being underestimated and the power of proving people wrong not through words, but through work. I talked about choosing yourself when no one else will. The audience was silent when I finished. Then someone started clapping Rebecca, I saw, and within seconds everyone was on their feet. Afterward, the line of people wanting to talk stretched down the hallway. Women with stories like mine. Men who wanted to know how to better support female colleagues. HR professionals asking about our interference protocols at Stellar. One woman, probably in her 50s, waited until the crowd thinned. "I sabotaged my daughter," she said bluntly. Not consciously. I thought I was protecting her. I told her medical school was too hard, that she should do something more manageable. I made her doubt herself at every turn. I didn't know what to say. She went anyway, the woman continued. "Became a surgeon. Hasn't spoken to me in 4 years. After your talk, I understand why." Tears were streaming down her face. "I don't know if she'll ever forgive me. But I wanted you to know your story helped me see what I'd done. Maybe it's too late for us. But maybe I can stop doing it to other young women I interact with." "It might not be too late," I said carefully. "If you've genuinely changed. If you can apologize without expecting forgiveness. If you can respect her boundaries even if she never wants a relationship again." That's what my therapist says. Then listen to your therapist. And maybe send your daughter a letter. Not asking for anything. Just acknowledging what you did and that she deserved better. She nodded and walked away. I never knew if she followed through, but I hoped she did. Rebecca took me to dinner that night. David and Dad joined us. We sat at a seafood restaurant overlooking the harbor, and Rebecca told stories about her early career, the discrimination she'd faced, the doors that had been slammed in her face, the mentors who'd believed in her anyway. I help young engineers because someone helped me, she said. That's how this works. We pull each other up. I'm trying, I said. It's harder than I expected. People don't always want help. Or they want me to fix everything for them. You can't fix everything, Rebecca said. You can open doors. You can provide opportunities. You can tell them the truth about their capabilities. But they have to walk through those doors themselves. Just like you did. Dad had been quiet most of the evening, but now he spoke up. I've been thinking about writing a book, he said. We all turned to look at him. A book? I asked. About parenting. Specifically, about how easy it is to fail at it even when you think you're doing fine. How work can become an excuse for absence. How grief can make you vulnerable to people who don't have your children's best interests at heart. He looked at me. I failed you, Anya. For years. I'd like to help other parents avoid making the same mistakes. If that's okay with you. My throat tightened. It's okay, Dad. It's more than okay. I'd want to tell our story. With your permission. Change names, obviously, but you have my permission. If it helps even one kid, it's worth it. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Thank you. David raised his glass. To second chances. And to the people brave enough to take them. We drank to that. 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. The news hit me harder than I expected. I sat in the bathroom staring at the positive test, and all I could think was, what if I'm like Linda? What if I hurt this kid the way she hurt me? David found me there 20 minutes later, still staring. Hey, he said gently. What's wrong? What if I'm a terrible mother? You won't be. You don't know that. He sat down beside me on the bathroom floor. I know you've spent the last decade learning from other people's mistakes. I know you're thoughtful and intentional about everything you do. I know you see people clearly and treat them with respect. And I know you're terrified, which means you actually care about getting this right. Linda probably thought she cared too. Linda was a narcissist who saw you as competition. You're not that. You're not even in the same universe as that. I leaned against him, letting his certainty anchor me. We'll figure it out together, he said. And if we screw up, which we will, because everyone does, we'll apologize, learn, and do better. That's all anyone can do. Our daughter, Elena, was born the following spring. She had David's dark hair and my stubborn chin and absolutely no patience for anything she deemed inefficient. She was perfect. Dad cried when he held her for the first time. I'm going to do better this time, he whispered to her. I'm going to be present. I promise. And he was. He showed up for every birthday, every milestone, every random Tuesday when we needed an extra pair of hands. He read to Elena, took her to museums, taught her chess. He became the grandfather, and in many ways, the father he should have been all along. Linda tried to reach out once more when she heard about Elena's birth. Sent a gift basket full of baby items and a card asking to be part of her granddaughter's life. I returned it unopened. David asked if I was sure. Completely sure, I said. She's not Elena's grandmother. She was my father's wife for 3 years, and she spent that time trying to destroy me. She doesn't get access to my daughter. What if she's changed? Then I'm happy for her. But change doesn't erase consequences. She made her choices. This is mine. He nodded and never questioned it again. When Elena was 2, she toddled into my home office while I was on a video call with my team. Climbed into my lap, looked seriously at the screen, and announced, "Mama is very smart. She builds rockets." The team melted. The meeting derailed into 15 minutes of people showing off their own kids and pets. We didn't get much work done, but morale was sky high. Later, after Elena was in bed, David found me in the kitchen. "You're crying," he observed. "Happy tears," I said. "Elena thinks I build rockets." Which is close enough. And she thinks I'm smart. She sees me clearly. She's 2 years old and she already sees me. Of course she does. Because you let her. Linda never saw me. Or she did, and it threatened her, so she tried to erase me. But she couldn't, David said. Because you're not erasable. You're brilliant and stubborn and entirely yourself. That's what Elena sees. That's what we all see. I held on to that thought. Dad's book came out when Elena was 3. Present tense, A Father's Reckoning with Absence and Accountability. It became a quiet bestseller, recommended by therapists and parenting groups. He did a book tour, and I went to his local reading. Listened to him talk about his failures, his grief, his awakening to what he'd let happen under his own roof. During the Q&A, a man stood up. But surely your daughter bears some responsibility for the family conflict? It sounds like she was difficult. Dad's expression went cold. My daughter was a child who'd lost her mother and needed her father to show up. She was never difficult. She was grieving and unsupported. Any conflict came from the adults failing her, not from her failing us. Next question. I'd never loved him more. The book led to speaking engagements, podcast interviews, workshops for divorced and widowed parents. Dad found a new purpose in helping others avoid his mistakes. I can't undo what I did, he told me once. But I can maybe prevent someone else from losing years with their kid the way I lost years with you. You're here now, I said. That counts. It has to count for something, he agreed. Because it's all I've got. Elena started preschool. Other parents would ask what David and I did for work, and when I said I was a director at an aerospace company, they'd nod politely and change the subject. But Elena would pipe up, my mama designs engines for spaceships. She's going to help people live on Mars. Close enough, kid. One of the other mothers, a patent attorney named Simone, caught me after drop-off one day. Your daughter is fiercely proud of you, she said. She's biased. No, she's lucky. My mom was a chemist, but she always downplayed it. Made it seem like her career was this burden she tolerated. I grew up thinking ambition was unfeminine. Took me decades to unlearn that. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just keep doing what you're doing. My daughter talks about how Elena's mom builds rockets. It's expanding what she thinks is possible for herself. That stayed with me. The idea that just by existing fully, by being unapologetically ambitious and successful, I was changing what other little girls thought they could become. When Elena was 5, we had a career day at her school. I brought models, videos of test fires, photos from our lab. Talked about thrust and fuel efficiency and the math behind space travel. One little boy raised his hand. Is this a boy job or a girl job? It's a people job, I said. Anyone who loves math and science and solving hard problems can do this job. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl or anything else. It matters if you're curious and willing to work hard. Elena stood up. My mama is the boss of lots of people. She's very important. The other kids looked impressed. The teacher smiled at me. Thank you for coming. This is exactly what they need to see. After, Elena held my hand on the walk to the car. Mama, when I grow up, can I build rockets too? If that's what you want. You can build rockets or bridges or houses, or you can be a doctor or a teacher or an artist. Whatever makes you happy. What if nothing makes me happy? Then you keep looking until you find something that does. Life's too short to spend it doing things that don't matter to you. She thought about this very seriously. Did you always know you wanted to build rockets? Not always. But I knew I liked figuring out how things worked. And I liked space. And I liked math. So I followed those interests and eventually they led me here. Was it hard? Sometimes. Some people didn't think I could do it. That's silly. You can do anything. God, I hoped she always believed that. About herself. Not just me. That night, I looked through my old notebooks from MIT. Found the one where I documented every cruel comment Linda had made. Read through it for the first time in years. The words still stung. But they didn't have power anymore. They were just the desperate attempts of an insecure woman to make herself feel bigger by making me smaller. I thought about burning the notebook. Symbolic closure and all that. But instead, I locked it in my safe. Not because I needed it as evidence anymore, but as a reminder. On hard days, when I doubted myself, I could look at it and remember, someone tried to erase me, and I refused to be erased. That was worth remembering. Last year, Stellar announced we'd won a major contract with NASA. Our propulsion system would be used on the first crewed mission to Mars, scheduled for 2037. My system. My team's design. The press conference was surreal. Cameras, reporters, executives congratulating us. I stood at the podium and talked about innovation and collaboration and the future of space exploration. Afterward, a reporter approached me. "You're quite young to be leading such a critical project." I'm 38. I've been in this field for 16 years. Still, some might say you're unproven for something this important. I smiled the way Rebecca had smiled at Linda on those auditorium steps. Sharp, polite, completely unbothered. My work proves itself. Feel free to review my publications, my patents, and the test data we submitted to NASA. They selected us because our design was the best. Age is irrelevant. The reporter backed off. David was waiting in the parking lot. "You handled that well." "I've had practice dealing with people who underestimate me." "Their loss. Always." We drove home. Elena was with Dad for the evening. They were building a blanket fort and watching documentaries about space. When we arrived to pick her up, she ran to me with a drawing. "Look, I drew you." It was a stick figure standing next to a rocket. The figure had wild black hair and a big smile. At the bottom, in Elena's careful kindergarten handwriting, "My mama. She is a scientist. She is brave." I hung it on my office wall, right next to Rebecca's business card. These were my treasures, evidence that I was seen, that I mattered, that I'd built something real. 2 weeks ago, I got an email from a graduate student at MIT. She'd heard about my NASA contract and was working on a thesis about barriers women face in aerospace engineering. "Would you be willing to be interviewed?" she asked. "Your story could really help others understand the obstacles and how to overcome them." I thought about Linda, about those recordings, about the moment I decided to fight back instead of accept being diminished. "Yes," I wrote back. "I'd be happy to talk." Because that's the thing about surviving sabotage. You have a responsibility to help others do the same. To say out loud what happened to you so that someone else recognizes the pattern before it destroys them. The interview is scheduled for next month. I've been preparing, gathering my thoughts about what to share and what to keep private. David asked if I'm nervous. "A little," I admitted. "It's still hard to talk about. Even after all these years." "You don't have to do it." "I know. But I want to. Because somewhere out there is a girl with a stepmother like Linda, or a mother like that woman at the conference, or just someone in her life who's systematically trying to make her doubt herself. And if my story helps her see it earlier, helps her document and fight back sooner, it's worth it." This morning, I dropped Elena at school. One of her classmates ran up to me. "Miss Chen, my mom says you're famous because of the Mars rocket." "Not famous," I said. "Just doing my job. Can you come talk to our class again?" "Please. I'll talk to your teacher." Elena beamed with pride. "Everyone thinks my mom is so cool." Later, driving to work, I thought about that. Everyone thinks my mom is so cool. Linda had tried to make me believe I was ordinary. That my ambitions were cute, my achievements were flukes, my worth was negotiable. She'd been wrong about all of it. I am not ordinary. I am a director of advanced propulsion research at one of the world's leading aerospace companies. I lead the team that designed the propulsion system that will take humans to Mars. I've published 17 peer-reviewed papers. I hold 6 patents. I mentor dozens of young engineers. I have a family I chose and built, a husband who sees me, a father who learned to show up, a daughter who thinks I'm cool. I am loved and respected and valued for exactly who I am. And Linda? Last I heard, she was working at a department store, living in that small apartment, still trying to convince people that her life fell apart because of other people's mistakes, not her own choices. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her anything at all. She's just a person I used to know. A person who tried to write me out of my own story and failed. That's the real victory. Not that she suffered, but that her opinions stopped mattering. Tonight, I'll go home to David and Elena. We'll have dinner, give Elena her bath, read bedtime stories. Dad might stop by with ice cream. We'll talk about Elena's day, about the project I'm working on, about Dad's next speaking engagement. It will be ordinary and perfect. And tomorrow, I'll go back to work. I'll lead my team. I'll solve impossible problems. I'll design systems that will carry humans across unimaginable distances. I'll keep building rockets. Not because Linda said it was cute and I need to prove her wrong, I'm long past needing that kind of validation. But because I love this work. Because it matters. Because some little girl somewhere needs to see that a woman who looks like her, who faced what she's facing, made it to the top and stayed there. Because I'm not just building rockets. I'm building a life where I'm not invisible, not diminished, not cute. I'm building a life where I'm exactly who I'm meant to be. And that, more than any revenge or public humiliation or dramatic confrontation, is the happiest ending I could imagine. If stories like this feel familiar, if you've had someone in your life try to make you smaller, try to convince you that your dreams were impractical or your achievements were flukes, you're not alone. Document everything. Find your allies. Trust your instincts. And remember, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Your story doesn't end with their opinion of you. It begins the moment you stop letting them write the narrative.